there's just 2 questions I have, and then what we want to do is open it up to the audience, and then allow a little time for each panelist to give a 13-second outro, I guess, so to speak. And then we do have some Harvey Milk business at the end for the last 10 minutes. So this is for whoever would like to answer. I'm only going to ask for one panelist to address this question. The question is, what if the sun isn't shining or it is not windy? How does that affect what we're talking about with CCA?
I can answer that.
Okay.
Solar power does not need bright sunshine to work. It works under cloud cover. Germany, which has more solar power in the world than any other place, is on average...
And more medals.
And more medals. Oh, and medals. Olympic medals. Their cloud cover is far more than foggy San Francisco if you look at the statistics. What happens is that the efficiency drops a little bit, but it keeps on chugging along. So.
And you don't have to use solar.
And you don't have to use solar. You can use. That's why I use a combination. Wind works at night. Solar doesn't work at night. San Francisco has a lot of wind. There are places that have wind 80% of the time. So that's where you put the windmills.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, last one. Is nuclear power going to be part of the portfolio? What does that look like?
Already is.
Okay. Would you like to answer?
Horrible.
We see 20% of nuclear power because we're on a common grid that comes into San Francisco. So our energy, about 20%, as it is commingled with other generation sources that are owned by PG&E and that is administered by the independent system operator in California. In California, we see 20% of the energy that is now applied through nuclear resources. So what was mentioned earlier, the admonishment with regard to PG&E, they are leading the nationwide campaign for the resuscitation of nuclear power. I was blown away by President Obama in making that move towards the revitalization and the rehab of existing power plants. That is just the beginning, and he is speaking, and I'm afraid the administration is speaking to exactly what PG&E wants. That move.
Are they insane?
Yes.
Okay, so now this is the portion of the program that we're going to take questions from the audience. And so I'm going to take a stack. And so I first saw your hand in the back, and I'm going to do it in the order that I saw people's hands. And I don't know everyone's name, so if you can state your name and then state your question. And if you have a particular question for a particular member, please let us know. Otherwise, it'll be the first person who would like to answer the question. And so I'm going to move my way from the front to the back.
My name is Julian Davis. I just have a question. A lot of obviously the folks who are interested in fighting back this Prop 16 move are municipal power agencies, which, because we've stated many times, are nonprofits, can't pump money into a campaign against it. I'm curious to know, and any panelists can answer this or all, where are the state interests in this state that are directly benefiting potentially from having municipal power and having CCAs that might be able to muster some kind of resources to build a statewide coalition campaign to actually fight back and beat Prop 16, which is the Prop 13 of energy, let's be honest. I mean, it's going to do to the energy industry what we're seeing happening to public education because of the effects of Prop 13. It's the same kind of effect. What kind of state interests can be leveraged, can resources be leveraged from in order to put together a campaign against this Prop 16 measure? And I'm just curious what your ideas are about that.
Who would like to answer?
Paul, maybe.
Well, we can tell real quickly who's actually signed on against. AARP, the Association of Senior Citizens, Retired People, are now waging against Prop 16. The League of Women Voters have now come out against Prop 16. And I'm paraphrasing the state name, but it's the Association of State Realtors have come out against Prop 16. The only friend PG&E has in the ballot handbook is the California Chamber of Commerce and a front group called the Taxpayer Association, who we've discovered is PG&E. So there are a number of state interests, and I have to tell you, they are a diverse coalition from conservatives to very left, And when we testified in Sacramento last week at the Joint Assembly and Senate Committee, we had Republicans, we had Libertarians, Greens, Democrats who testified at the committee, and PG&E had their flank, and it was all PG&E and then the Chamber of Commerce.
You know, unfortunately the Sacramento Bee, rather conservative publication, State Capitol, came out against Prop 16. It's whether or not in a couple of months' time we can do the extraordinary and have the little person win against the powerful forces. And whereas that's a terrific notion on a long term, it's whether or not there can be enough information provided to voters that we're likely to recruit for June, and to really operate in that perspective. And it may be a time when voters feel pushed around, or there is a fed-upness, or there is a revolt in the air, or there are a lot of things that are hard to gauge on the part of how people are feeling today and how they will regard issue. I think that may be a plus because of the unrest, because of the exploitation, because of the bailouts, because of the stimulus package, because of the joblessness. And we can hope that just a despairing sense will also inure to the benefit of people trying to do clear, righteous, easy things. And I think it's very important to talk about green power for progressive environmental San Francisco, or anyone, and try and keep our messaging simple. And I think there's a fair amount of public distrust for PG&E or large corporations anyway, if we're able to discipline ourselves with a short, clear message.
If I may add that, you know, the LA Times in LA has actually said something about this, but in San Francisco, the only publication that's really writing about this is the Bay Guardian, and of course, the Chronicle has been absolutely silent on this, which is, of course, not a surprise. But the reality is it's people power that's going to defeat this, and that's why we need to continue to do what we're doing tonight.
And real quick, just specifically to your question, Julian, what you described is happening right now. There is a statewide campaign. Anyone that wants to go to it can go to powergrab.info, and a lot of municipal employees and political and politicians, while in their office cannot go up against PG&E, they can as individuals. And a lot of them have, on their own free time as volunteers, stepped forward and joined with that initial coalition and are working on fundraising, et cetera, so that we can really get the ball rolling on an anti-Prop 16 campaign. So that's happening, and you can contact me.
We're setting up a sub-campaign out of the Turn office, the Utility Reform Network. So if people are interested here, I don't know if somebody wants to put up a sign-up sheet or put it around. If you want us to plug people in, we'll let people know. But I got to tell you something. We're going to need the grassroots to really sort of compensate heavy for what is going to obviously be money that we can't compete with. So it is now moving. If people are interested, more information, what have you, you're ready to fight, ready to work, let us know. But a sign-up sheet on the No 16 is exactly what we need people to sign for.
And I just wanted to add something really quickly.
Okay, one last comment, because I saw about 7 hands.
Okay, I just wanted to add something really quickly in terms of, once again, I want to re-echo Supervisor Campos' statements is we have to reach into the community, especially communities of color, and make sure that they understand these issues. If PG&E goes and says your rates will increase, if I'm a working class person or a single mother, I'm not going to want my rates to increase. So it's a very simple vote for me, and I don't have to listen to anything else. So we have to have folks that are willing to walk into in certain neighborhoods and go door to door, apartment to apartment, and actually go talk to these folks and not just think you're going to send them a mailer or lack thereof, and that they're going to just vote the right way. We have to be able to drill deeper, because PG&E funds a lot of nonprofits in certain communities in San Francisco, and a lot of these nonprofits are closer to the.
Okay, so I'm going to take the woman in the back with the cool hat, and I'm going to ask for one person to on the panel to address so we can get through everyone's questions, please.
Hi, my name is Kim Clark. First of all, I want to say to the panel, it's really been delightful having here and really getting an informative idea as to what all of this really means for all of San Francisco. So my thanks goes to the panel coming out. I want to address exactly what Chris is saying here, and just kind of piggyback on that. I think that Supervisor Campos had said something to that effect, that a lot of the low-income community, and of course the low-income communities such as District 10, Bayview, all of those communities will be impacted. The biggest concern for me, and I have two questions, of course. One will be for Chris about the green jobs, but I also want to know, how is the merger with the Navy, with the shipyard and Candlestick Park, and all of the environmental drawback from this going to affect the residents of District 10?
Would like to take that question? Okay.
Do we start with the green jobs, or do we start with the
Okay. Chris?
I guess I'll start with the green jobs, and in terms of this, City College's role in this whole thing is, we're the trainer of choice in San Francisco. So a lot of the workforce initiatives that come out of the city government, they always piggyback on City College's existing infrastructure. And the really good part about City College is we have an entire campus, the Evans campus, that's related to vocational training, and it's right in Bayview Hunters Point. That's the remarkable part. The sad part is, folks in our community, we don't access that. So on our part, on City College's part, we need to step up the outreach and drill deeper into the community, and we're doing that, and we're going to continue to do that. But we are setting ourselves up in terms of building curriculum, in terms of going after state grants and federal grants, in terms of building that infrastructure. So when we do get potential to have green jobs, we'll be able to bring folks in the community who are not there yet. A lot of our folks aren't there yet, but we can bring them up to par, folks, so that they're competitive in the job market. So that's where we're, and City College's role is going to be in terms of this green job. They're here to train folks, especially low-income folks, so that they can compete in this market. So that's where we're at on green jobs. And I know John has pushed forward, Josh, I would say, and Eric Smith has also done a lot in terms of pushing for biofuels and green jobs and things like that. So I'll say that.
A couple of things. To the extent that you're talking about a project that is, what's happening with Lennar and Bayview, that's coming before the board, I'm not going to really discuss the specifics because that's something that will come before us, and I want to be able to vote. So I don't want to say about that. Though I think that speaks for itself. What I would say is that there is a connection in terms of what's happening here. It's not just CCA, but it's just an illustration of a corporation trying to essentially protect a monopoly, trying to do something that ultimately is going to impact the most vulnerable members of our communities, which is, you cannot underscore enough what Trustee Jackson was saying. You really have to make sure that we not only preach to the choir, but we really get our message to those communities that may not know that this is happening, but in the end are going to be the most impacted. That means making sure in the mission that those local papers, that they have some information about that the Colote, the Portero, that they're writing about that in Chinatown, those publications are also writing about that you go on Spanish radio, that you make sure that you get to those folks who, for whatever reason, are not able to understand what's happening or even know that it's happening, that they become involved. I just tour, which is something that I do frequently, the housing developments in my district. There's a lot of interest in solar energy in those developments. And those residents want to be involved. And so we need to make sure that we help empower them, because they do want to be empowered. They do want to be involved. And what they need more than anything else is just that information. But you know what? The Chronicle is not going to do it. The Examiner is not going to do it. So we have to take it upon ourselves to make sure it happens.
Okay, so the order I have is Denise Deanne, and we have a gentleman in front, then I'm going to take your question, and then Eric Smith. But before that, actually Carol Migden needs to
I
leave.
need a skedaddle.
So
I'm referring my closing remarks to Supervisor Mercury,
I'm referring to
because he has the volume.
So we just want to thank
And
you
the
so
depth,
much.
but I thank you very, very much, and I think this kind of keen interest is going to fuel the grassroots activism that we're going to need to fight back. We've done this a lot. It's time and again. And Ross did make a point about corporate money being treated the same as individual money, which is very dismaying on a range of things that we're going to try and combat. And, you know, that's a court that presumably was supposed to be kind of friendly. So when your friends aren't your friends, and you find that there's perhaps our administration, Democratic one, almost cloture-proof, aren't doing so well by us, this forces us to reinvestigate and redeploy methods we're going to need to control our futures. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, so Denise Deanne.
My question is there anything legislatively that we can do to prevent ratepayer money to run corporate campaigns?
And if we can have one person speak so we can get through everyone's questions. Who would like to take this one?
No.
Nothing?
No? Okay.
It would have to be a California constitutional amendment, and it would probably be challenged.
Stare decisis.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question.
I would be very pissed off if I had to pay United Airlines to fly Southwest. You get that? But I think that's what's happening here. If we win, if we set up this new power authority and we manage to attract huge numbers of ratepayers away from PG&E, don't we have to pay them to take their customers away? Isn't that in the fine print?
I'll handle it.
And if so, how did that happen?
PG&E plays this up to frighten local officials into thinking that there's a major charge on the bill. In fact, there's an annualized risk margin on all power sales. And one of the ideas with CCA was to make it, that's why it's so inappropriate for PG&E to be so aggressive, was to protect PG&E's existing ratepayers against adverse impacts from cities breaking away. That's what that charge is for. It's not a major charge. It's a very small charge compared to the bailout charge you're paying PG&E right now, or compared to the initial stranded cost bailout of 1996. So it's really not a big deal. It's paying for short-term procurement contracts that everyone has to pay for. So it's not a special charge, and it doesn't threaten the economics of the program. It's a small, basically a small margin on the overall cost.
Thank you very much. So you would be the next question, and then it will be your question. And if you can state your name, please.
I'm Mary Beth Brannigan from the Ecological Options Network, and I'm wondering what we can do, even if we win, to prevent the ballot boxes in the Bay kind of thing.
I'm still tortured by this experience.
Well, Willie Brown isn't around anymore.
Well,
stand corrected.
Well, I mean, like everything we do that we believe in transparency and sunshine, and everything we're calling for in terms of the countless hearings that we've had, as it's been mentioned, the legislation and the legislative process, this has all been done in a fishbowl, and we will all have to unite as it comes down to the next 3 months is exactly when we will pick an energy contractor. We're in the negotiation process right now who have answered the request for proposals. The Public Utilities Commission San Francisco with LAFCO, who's watching it, Local Agency Formation Commission, which I chair, and Supervisor Campos is vice chair on. will decide who will be our energy people. So when you hear this argument that the city can't run Muni and the city cannot put on what other cities, dozens of them doing in California or in the United States, hundreds of cities are doing at cheaper rates, greener energy, it's just complete bunk. Besides, we deliver the best water in the United States. We have the infrastructure of one of the most impressive utilities throughout the whole country. That's what Hetch Hetchy delivers. That's what the PUC is able to do. With an energy provider that we're able to contract, we can compete on that level that any other city or state that's a public power entity can provide reliable energy and at a competitive rate, and the kind of energy you will go bed at night sleeping thinking, wow, I'm contributing to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and to a greener economy. And as long as we're able to secure that potential in the next 3 months and fight PG&E at Prop 16 or whatever happens, that means that we're all going to have to be deputized as being sort of sunshine lieutenants and making sure that whatever corruption PG&E resorts to, they don't get away with it, and any politician that aligns with them needs to be ousted from office.
That's right.
Thank you. And what's your name? And what's your question?
It seems like the success or the failure of something like this is going to depend upon how well the people who are not in this room understand what's going on. And the success or the failure is going to depend upon the people who don't go to every political activism event in town, that don't participate in die-ins all over the place. And I'm not criticizing any of that. I support all of this stuff. But probably whenever you have an issue that, and I do have a question, so please bear with me, but when you have environmental advocacy versus industrial polluters, it always seems like the issue of jobs versus the environment and economy always comes into the big picture. Because whether it's like Chevron Refinery talking about, well, we're employing 1,200 people in the community, so what about your little community there? Or Canadian tar sands or whatnot. And what I'm saying is that PG&E has one of the tallest buildings as their headquarters downtown, and they employ thousands and thousands of people. They employ a lot of union electricians. They employ people who have homes in Oakland Hills to Sunset District and raise families and pay mortgages. And how do you tell those people to get on board with something like this? Because even though something like this...
Make it more brief because we have other questions and we are so running out of time. Go ahead.
So even though something like this is going to provide green jobs in one area, how do you tell these people to get on board with it if they're going to feel like, well, good for them, but this is going to take away my security? How do you address that issue?
You know, the real issue with them is PG&E already deunionized during deregulation. That's what that was for. It was one of their wins, frankly. When they divested their power plants, which was voluntary, they claimed they were forced to, they deunionized those plants. They deunionized their bill collection and their meter reading. So this company's already done that to their workers. If you look at worker approval of the corporate leadership within PG&E, very low. Most people in the business understand they'd be better off with public contracts working for the city or the community than they would be working for that company. I think that's the best answer, other than the fact that, you know, a nuclear power plant is maybe 50 jobs long-term, 100 jobs maybe. Energy efficiency, like Chris was talking about. If the city gets these energy efficiency funds, you're talking about permanent jobs on an order of magnitude higher per watt installed than you would get from any conventional power plant. Green jobs are labor intensive, like organic farming is more labor intensive. It takes more people to install all this stuff. So, you know, some of them might be persuaded by the propaganda that they're threatened, and the IBEW, trust me, has been a real problem because they act like a company union and they tell their own members what, you know, that they're threatened by this. But the truth is that it's a win for them. They'll be better off under a CCA than they are now.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now I see Eric's hand, the woman in the front, and and then Scott, and then let me stop there because we're kind of running out of time. So Eric.
Great, thank you. Eric Smith, thanks guys for having us. I got two quickie questions, and I think, Ms. Migden talked about, the mistrust that PG&E has. They're going to be spending a lot of money. They've been with us for over 100 years. They're spending money in the community even as we speak, so that's going to be an uphill challenge, and I agree it's definitely going to be the pay-per-view event. I'm sickened by it. Eric, I know you and I don't always agree, but I'll go down swinging with you on this one. Two quick questions. You mentioned, all right, one question, try to blend it into one. You mentioned LAFCO and trying to be grandfathered in. What can we do to sort of help that, fight that and fight, PG&E doing their thing, and so that we have a sort of a leg up as we move forward on this? That would be my question.
Okay, who would like to take this question?
Well, I think the most important thing is making sure that we defeat Prop 16. I think that has to be a top priority, because unless you do that, then all the accomplishments we've made are going to be under threat. In terms of LAFCO, I think you just have to be involved. The reality is that it hasn't been an easy thing to do. It's been an uphill battle every step of the way. I just joined LAFCO last year, but I can tell you that even in that very short period of time, it was very clear that the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission was very reluctant to move forward as quickly as they should. And, Supervisor Rossman-Karimi has been fighting that fight for many years. The more people are involved in these efforts, the more powerful we'll become. But, if you look at LAFCO, the level of involvement, even within the progressive community, has really not at the level, it's not been at the level that you would expect. So I think if you really care about these issues, start going to the LAFCO meetings, show up and, provide feedback. That's how things happen. City Hall, the greasy wheel, the squeaky wheel gets greased. Well, we need to make sure that every one of us becomes a squeaky wheel.
Can I just real quickly, this is the concrete schedule. We're in negotiations now with a potential power provider. Those negotiations comes back before the Board of Supervisors. Between mid or the end of March, when we have a contract, it is during the duration in April that this comes to the Board of Supervisors. This is going to require as many votes as we can on the board. I'm thinking concretely, we have 7, maybe 8 votes consistently where we are. It is not clear what Mayor Newsom is going to do on this. Anything that trips us up along the way between now and the June ballot measure will certainly weaken our ability to grandfather CCA in case Prop 16 wins. The answer to the question is, I'm serious. Monitor us on the board. Do not let any member of the Board of Supervisors or Gavin Newsom off the hook for not supporting the contract that's coming up to secure CCA, and that's going to happen between March and April. LAFCO has actually already done its position. We'll continue to be the whipping post as much as we possibly can, but now the game is right in the chambers of the board and in the chief executive.
Right. So we know listening to your question.
I'd like to know, are we going to have more solar powered panels for roofs or green powered panels for roofs, including planting, such as solar powered planting for roofs?
The CCA plan would put 31 megawatts of solar power in the city, and where that would be mostly on rooftops. Distributed across rooftops all over the city. And if you go up on Twin Peaks or someplace like that and look out, you see a sea of flat roofs where you could easily fit 31 megawatts.
They have to be planted and they have to be pointed in a certain way.
The roofs can be flat. The roofs.
Hotel Carlton that's what they did. They put solar panels on their hotel. The whole hotel is powered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Thank you.
I lost my train of thought.
I know,
but that's I know what I want to say. This is actually for solar power. This is actually the best way to do it, because it's where the electricity is being used. That's where it's generated. What PG&E wants to build giant solar farms out in the desert, which means you have to destroy desert for one, but also build transmission lines which adds hugely to the expense, but they happen to be in the power transmission business. So having it in the city the way CCA would do is really the best way to do it.
Thank you. So Scott, what's your question?
Two brief ones.
Nope.
Okay. In that case, I'll go to Mr. Rizzo. What, if anything, is SCE's role and LA Water and Power's role in the Prop 16 fight? Southern California Edison.
Southern California Edison and San Diego Gas and Electric, I think it is. They're the other two investor-owned utilities, along with PG&E in the state of California. They are not putting anything into this campaign. They are not funding this campaign. It's all PG&E. And the reason is that this isn't. They see this for what it is, an anti-competitive campaign. They don't trust. They trust PG&E as much as Ross Margarimi does or Bruce Brugman does.
Well, they don't fund the no campaign.
They're probably going to stay out of it. I don't think they'll come in on the no campaign. But they see it as an anti-competitive.
And LA Water and Power has to stay out because they're municipal. Is that correct?
Yeah, the municipal agencies are forbidden by law
because they're nonprofits
from participating in this elections. It's just another outrageous thing.
Thank you.
Okay, Maggie, I didn't see your hand until last, so we were saving the best for last. If you would like to ask a question.
Thank you. Just as I live in Glen Park and I have friends that live in many neighborhoods, and a lot of people ask me, because they're confused, what will it cost to do solar? Does my roof have to face a certain way? Does it have to be slanted? Does it have to be flat? How can I afford it? Are there loans? Are there ways to get it solar on my house? I own a house I've lived in 50 years and I don't have solar yet. But Denise has solar in her house, so I want to get solar in my house.
Briefly, there's your roof.
A lot of people are asking me the same question.
Maybe we need to have resources and distribute.
How do people afford to do it? And does it, why are we being fed this woolly crap? Is that your house has to be slanted in a certain direction?
That's not true. I'll just say that's not true. Your house doesn't have to be in any particular way. There's several ways you could do it. You could buy it yourself. If you buy it yourself, there's a 30% federal tax credit. There's a state rebate. There's also a city rebate. The other way, the way CCA would do it, it would basically lease the space on your house or an apartment building. So there's no upfront cost to the owner.
So weather doesn't matter, location doesn't matter, cost can be handled in an efficient way.
Cost can be brought down.
So we have to get this information across to the individual homeowner and people living in buildings with apartments and condos. These nitty-gritty questions, because everybody's broke and everybody's scared and there's more money to put out, but when they have to realize it will reduce their costs.
So maybe that's something with the environmental caucus that we can work on. So thank you for that question. So with that said, what I would like to ask of the panelists now is you have a 30-second outro. If there's something that you wanted to say that during the course of this panel you were unable to say, or if you want to give some inspiring words to the Harvey Milk, si se puede. So we want to go from that's all right.
Oh, okay, great. All right, well, for one, I want to remind you the campaign website is powergrab.info. I've got, if anybody wants a leaflet, my son will bring you a copy, put your hand up. And otherwise, this is one of these moments where we could either have really a major victory, make international news. This already is international news. There's 60 stories in national, the New York Times, or in Business Week, etc. This is a national story already. And so it is Marin and San Francisco breaking away and PG trying to stop them. So the press has been incredibly negative. 59 out of 60 stories really are basically negative on Prop 16. That's important. So even though we have no money, they have all the money, we have the truth on our side. And that's an important advantage. And not to forget that. If you can get involved, it is very volunteer-based, and if you contact us through the website, we'll get in touch with you and put you in touch with others here and take it from there.
I'm going to just first reiterate in terms of having a vision of what this looks like, in terms of where City College is, where we're prepared. We're ready to train the folks who are going to actually do this work, especially in the energy efficiency and the installer the solar panel, wind turbine, if we ever get it. We're ready and willing to do that, and we are drilling down the community as we speak in terms of providing that. I also want to, talk about in terms of, the community. The community is ready to work. And so you have the training, you have the workforce, and so now we just need, in terms of our values as San Franciscans, we really need to, have the cojones to actually vote for this stuff and actually beat down and beat back Prop 16. Because I will say, in Prop H, it was very discouraging. I mean, and folks in specific communities actually voted the wrong way because they weren't outreached to, and because PG&E has already drilled down in the community funding their nonprofits and have you not. So we as a progressive community can't just come to folks when we have a ballot initiative and ask them that, hey, support this, but then, we can't parachute to folks' communities only at times of crisis. We have to also drill down deep. We're working on local hire. It's not a crisis. It's a crisis, but it's not like a ballot initiative, but we're working on it ongoing. We have to be the same when it comes to public power, when it comes to clean and green energy. We have to explain to folks before the ballot initiatives, before the fights and the wars happen, we have to work with people on a long-term basis and show them that we're invested in, that this is good for the community and is good for the environment. So thank you. And let's remember that when we move forward.
Somebody asked what you can do, what you folks can do to help, and I want to amplify on that. Because of what has happened with the Wall Street bailouts, because of what happened with the PG&E bailout of $20 billion over the last decade, because renewable energy is starting to take off and people are conscious of it, even though PG&E is a huge and powerful corporation, the reason they're about to spend $35 million on this campaign is that they're in trouble and they know it. And they're going for broke. So what you can do, remember that June is a low turnout election. There are going to be a couple of Republicans vying for their shot at getting the governor's office, which is not going to be all that fascinating to a lot of voters. And so, no offense to those of you that are Republicans, but it's just not going to be that, So what we're looking at is a potential low turnout unless everybody in this room shares the word with everybody they know in the city, everybody they know in the state, so that we not only beat PG&E at the ballot, and we not only get as many people in San Francisco to stay in Clean Power SF when you get those little notices. We need to not just beat PG&E, we need to slam PG&E so hard that it's the end of that corporation. And that means do everything you can to spread the word and get people to the polls on June 8th to vote no on Prop 16. And the website locally, you've already got powergrab.info, the website locally that you can go to email on that website and get in touch with me to help coordinate what's going on with Clean Power SF is our-city.org. That's O-U-R, and then the minus sign, not the underline, O-U-R-city.org.
Thank you.
I want to thank the club for having me and arranging this panel. It's been great. I guess I'll end with, while I was watching the Olympics during the past 2 weeks, and I have to admit I was a bit addicted to it. The disturbing part for me was watching these two TV commercials. One was from the coal industry. The other one was from the gas and oil industry. And they were saying things like, we're clean and we create jobs. We create jobs. Now, in the environmental movement, we've been hearing this for decades, that jobs, if you do the right thing environmentally, we're going to lose jobs. And in fact, the opposite is true. So take old growth timber harvesting, right? 1,000-year-old trees, and we're going to cut it down. We found ourselves faced with these lumber companies going around to communities saying, you're gonna lose your jobs if we do this. And we're saying with fisheries, if you protect the fish and put limits on catches, well, the fishermen are going to lose their jobs and you have to go fight this. Well, what happens is that the timber is gone, it goes away, and guess what? There are no jobs. The fish go away, and guess what? There are no jobs. That's what's happening with oil and gas. Okay, that we do not have an unlimited supply of oil and gas. It's going down. The United States oil production peaked in the 1970s. Since the 1970s, our output in the United States is going lower and lower and lower. That means fewer and fewer and fewer jobs. Where the jobs are in green energy, in solar power, in wind power, in geothermal power, not in oil and gas. So it's kind of an Alice in Wonderland view. And it's nothing new. It's what we've been in the environmental industry been facing for years and years and years. So
thank you.
So to diagram very quickly, over the next 12 weeks, I'm not kidding, it's next 12 weeks. One front is that we will secure and solidify our ability in San Francisco to be energy aggregators. And we're going to need as much activist support to make sure that it passes the Board of Supervisors and it gets signed by the mayor. If we're able to secure this, we then can, it doesn't matter if it's one customer or 500,000 customers. Once we're able to deliver customers, which we believe that we can do rather quickly before the June ballot election, then I believe that we may have secured our position if Prop 16 wins in the June ballot. If it doesn't win, all the much better. But this is what that kind of body tackle, literally we all have to do together so that we can get into the end zone and make sure that we are now officially an energy aggregator. 12 weeks, that's all we've got. And then it is the concurrent, get prepared to fight like you've never fought before. I know everybody was very impassioned on stopping 16 because it's not about San Francisco, it is literally about California, and it's not just about California, as it was mentioned earlier, it's about this country. There are many hundreds of cities who are already public power cities, and many of them are in California now, the dozens of those, who are banking to see exactly what happens. We cannot let PG&E win.
That's right.
I'm not going to repeat some of the things that have been said. I would just simply say this. I think that to defeat Prop 16, we have to create a broad coalition beyond the individual work that we have to do in this room. We need to make sure that people understand that this is not simply a progressive issue. This is not simply a Democrat issue or a Green issue. This is an issue that makes sense for all Californians. And that means that it's not just the Harvey Milk Club in San Francisco, it's the Alice B. Toklas Club, it's the Burnham Heights Democratic Club. All of the clubs that are politically involved in San Francisco need to understand that we have common ground on this issue. We can work together. I think it's important for us to reach out to those organizations to make sure that it's not just progressives working on this, but it's all San Franciscans. And then we need to make sure that as we work on this campaign for the next 12 weeks, that it is a diverse campaign, it's a multicultural campaign. It's great that we have a website. We need to make sure that that information is available in all languages so that all voters have access to that
information. Okay, Harvey Milkers, we have our work cut out for us. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank all the panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.